Hello. Why is everyone getting worked up about deflation? Deflation is when prices fall across the economy. You might think it's very good. Deflation means that prices are lower, we can make our money go further. So why is it that so many gloomy predictions about deflation are going on right now at the start of 2009? And so many central banks and economists, governments are so worried about the prospect of deflation occurring. There's a prediction of 2% deflation across the US economy for 2009. Prices falling by 2%. What's so bad about it? Why are they scared about it? I'd like to point out 3 reasons to you why deflation, falling prices, is actually a more serious problem than inflation. Firstly, it makes our money appear stronger, but because we know deflation is occurring, because we don't suffer from money illusion, because we know that prices are falling, we put off our spending. Anyone thinking about spending a large amount of money on a car or a large piece of furniture is going to wait. They're going to wait until the last possible moment so that they can get the best possible price. And this worsens already collapsing demand. So people put off their spending. After all, money saved is going to be more powerful in the future if prices are falling. So there's a collapse in demand. That's the number 1 problem. The second problem is that monetary policy has a limit. And when there's deflation, that limit is somehow brought forward. It worsens the effectiveness of monetary policy, deflation. You see, monetary policy aims to lower interest rates in order to stimulate the economy. But as you know, interest rates controlled by central banks like the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, the Bank of Japan, are already very, very close to zero. Because central banks have reduced their interest rates, hoping that this will get passed on through the economy, very low interest rates, to encourage people to borrow and to spend. But you see, even if interest rates are zero, the real interest rate will be positive if there is deflation. You see, you may be getting nominally 0% on your savings, and if you put $1,000 in the bank, it will still be worth $1,000 in 1 year's time. They brought down the nominal interest rates. But because of deflation, that $1,000 will buy you more at the end of the year than at the start of the year. So in real terms, you may have real interest, even though the monetary authorities have brought the nominal rates all the way down to zero. Your money is growing as savings, and that's the second problem with deflation. It weakens the effectiveness of monetary policy because the authorities can only take nominal interest rates down to zero and no further. But if there is deflation, then the real interest rate, the real growing power of your purchasing power, of your money saved, well, that's really growing. In fact, the equation is, and I'll put it up as a caption here, nominal rate minus inflation equals real interest rate. But of course, if the inflation rate is negative, we have nominal minus a minus, which is plus. So what's predicted for this year in the American economy? 2% deflation. That could create a real interest rate of 2%, even if the Fed takes interest rates all the way down to zero. The third problem with deflation: it raises the real value of a debt burden. This is a bit of a tricky one to understand, but it's very, very powerful, this effect. If I take out a mortgage, indeed I have taken out a mortgage, I took out a mortgage 6 years ago to buy a house, and I bought a lovely house. Now, me and millions of other people around the world experience that the worst years of a mortgage repayment are probably the first years. You see, let's say you take out a 30-year mortgage, which is getting more common now, or even a 25-year mortgage. As you borrow a large amount of money to buy your home, you've calculated how much you can afford to pay back every month. And you start to pay that back every month. as the years and the years pass, if there's inflation, prices and probably your wage, your salary, starts to creep up in nominal terms. And the amount of money that you were struggling to get together every month to pay as your repayment should, over the years, look like a smaller and smaller amount. It's quite possible that with inflation, moderate inflation, at the end of a 25-year mortgage, the repayment you're making is much, much smaller as a proportion of your income than it represented at the start of your repayments. So it's a bit of a difficult concept to understand, but as the years pass with a mortgage, if there's inflation, the amount you pay back looks smaller. If you were paying back, let's say someone taking out a big mortgage today and they're committed to paying back, let's say, €2,000 every month. And it's a bit of a stretch for them. They've got a good job, but it's a bit of a stretch to find €2,000 every month to pay their mortgage. But if there's inflation, 25 years from now, €2,000 might be what? It might be the price of an expensive meal for four in a restaurant. Perhaps by then, the minimum wage, with inflation, minimum wage might be 30, 40 euros an hour. And the 2,000 that they have to find every month will not represent very much of their income by then. Their income will be much, much, much higher in nominal terms. But when there's deflation, prices are not rising, they're falling. And if there's sustained deflation, wages may fall. And so the amount of money that you have to pay back every month, even if it stays the same in nominal terms, and literally in number terms, will become more and more difficult to find every month. It will represent a bigger and bigger amount of your income, if your income is falling because prices are falling. And the threat of this happening discourages people from taking out mortgages during a time of deflation. Besides, why borrow money to pay for a house if that house is falling in value? That's the third problem, deflation. People don't want to borrow money to buy houses, they don't want to take out new mortgages, they're scared that they won't be able to find the money for the repayments, and so people don't want to borrow during times of deflation. Now, whether they can borrow, whether there are funds there, these are other issues. But people are deterred, and not just people, businesses who borrow for investment purposes are deterred from borrowing during times of deflation because the burden of real debt rises. So, for all these reasons, a period of deflation, people aren't going to buy consumer durables because they put off their spending on those things as their prices are falling. Monetary policy becomes less effective because real interest rates will be higher than the nominal interest rates. And thirdly, people are put off committing themselves to long-term debt because the real burden of debt starts to rise during a period of sustained deflation. For all of these reasons, deflation really stifles or dampens an economy. People aren't borrowing, people aren't spending, and things simply get worse. I hope that was useful to show you how deflation is going to be potentially damaging for economies, and I welcome your comments on this. Bye-bye.